Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This will be my next Legacy of Yangchen chapter analysis video. This one will be for chapter 15, which is called The Oathbreaker. So, short chapter once again. We arrive in Taku and mostly get to sort of what the group dynamic is now that we're like properly kind of on a mission together. Yangchen is like confirmed, yeah, Kavik's going to be part of the group, but how do the group kind of really feel about that on a more normal situation? Because obviously in previous chapters we more, jump straight into action and he had to get reincorporated back in very quickly, but now mission, there's a bit of a build up before the stuff actually starts to happen here. How did they actually feel about him? And of course they get to Kavik and Jujinta being the main sort of point of contention here. Jujinta is the one who feels most strongly against Kavik, and here we sort of see Jujinta more vocally voice his direct kind of concerns about that, and it's an interesting scene, obviously, just getting to see more Jujinta. So, we jump in here and we basically have the arrival at Taku. Now, straight away, this is an important kind of point because this is the only Shang city that we haven't been to, and now we're finally arriving here. This was like the first thing we ever found out about Yangchen Book 2 was that Taku would be involved. And what's interesting especially about Taku is, of course, of the four Shang cities, it is the only one that we know about from basically like other material. The other three Shang cities, Port Tugak, Bin and Jondari, are all new places that we've never really heard about before in other eras. But Taku we know about from ATLA. Taku is actually referenced in the first Kyoshi novel as well. So right at the start here, I want to take a little bit of time to sort of get ourselves kind of acquainted with what we actually know about Taku. So, in ATLA, it is the Blue Spirit, so episode 13 of Book 1, Water, where we actually get to see a bit of Taku. Now, in the Blue Spirit, most people will remember the main plots being, of course, the Pohai stronghold, and that's where, Aang and the Blue Spirit, Zuko work together to free Aang from Zhao's fortress, of course. It's the episode where we have the Yuyan archers in there and all that sort of stuff. But the Taku connection here is this is the place where Katara and Sokka are when they're sick. So it is not particularly focused on, it's just they are hanging out while they're sick in the ruins of Taku, and Aang goes to the Herbalist Institute, which is also a location in Taku, and then is captured like on the way back and brought to the fortress. So, let's get into some of the details that we have here. So the old Nickelodeon website says this about Taku. So the abandoned ruins of Taku, located along the western shores of the Earth Kingdom, the once great city of Taku was an important trading post. The town was used to move goods brought from ships to various locations in the Earth Kingdom. The Fire Nation recognized the city's strategic location and attacked it very early on in the war. It was one of the first Earth Kingdom cities destroyed. So, straight away, super interesting. That's why it is in ruins. It was once known as a great city, and that makes a lot of sense. But it also means that, I guess, it was a notable city as a Shang city, but then it continues on in the aftermath of whatever happens with the Shang cities and remains an important city right up until the early days of the war, where it gets destroyed by the Fire Nation. So there's the history of this place. And of course, this is in a way, to a certain degree, what sort of inspired the idea of the Shang cities, of just like this location being referred to as like an important trading post from the past. And in a way, that's why this came into use as like, oh, perfect use for this place to make it one of the previous, Shang cities. And we do have some visuals, of course, like we get this pretty nice shot showing off the general kind of sense of what it looks like. And we'll see when we get into the description in the kind of first kind of paragraph in a way of the book, that here it is. This, I think, is referred to as like the old town that kind of climbs up the mountain. And you can see here that, yeah, in its time, this was probably a amazing, stunning city. Like, look, just simply the fact that like there's a Badgermole statue there up front kind of, I think, speaks to some of that stuff. Huge, the fact that they kind of had the means to build it up the mountainside. Very, very interesting stuff. Obviously, the Herbalist Institute, which Aang goes to, is also a somewhat interesting location. Now, it's a bit separate from the other kind of city, but it is noted that like this is related to Taku and stuff like that. So, again, nice architecture. It seems to be the only really remaining aspect of kind of Taku to a certain degree that is left. And you can see here's the kind of institute itself, but there's also on the side, like on the left here, you can see again more kind of stuff built into the sides of the mountain and stuff like that. So a very visually interesting looking place. And then, of course, we do learn a little bit about Taku in the Kyoshi novels, where we get the idea that one of the Earth sages in the Kyoshi era, alongside Janju and some of the others, is a herbalist Pan, who is the Earth Sage of Taku. So in the Kyoshi era, Taku is a notable enough place that it has an Earth Sage, and their Earth Sage is the herbalist. So it speaks to the idea of the herbalist that we meet in Avatar as actually being this kind of almost like legacy position that kind of continues, and it's a respected thing from the area. So, you know, it is a place that we know a little bit about, but obviously most fans won't be like super up to speed with like it being incredible here. And this is meant to be effectively our introduction here to it. But interesting because, again, it is the last of the Shang cities that we need to visit. And yeah, we open up the chapter here with it being noted that like Kavik is like, you know, I thought Bin-Er was kind of fancy with the way the Shangs themselves kind of lived. But actually, Bin-Er has nothing on the way Taku is. Taku is the city of like wealth. Like, this is a place that is just, you know, they will use gold in the place of silver. You know, they really get across that this is the place that like the money just flows, that this place is a huge success. And yeah, it says the wealthy of Taku had no such concerns. The roofs were tiled with expensive slate that had to have been earthbent one by one into the right shapes. The streets were as smooth as smoked leather, and the fountain in the center of the square was literally gilded from base to peak. Above the busy commercial and residential sectors, Taku's famous old town climbed the inclines of tiny Mount Wuyao like creeping ivy. And I think, again, that is what they're talking about here. That, like, it's not an incredibly tall kind of mountain, but you could see the idea is that the city sort of does kind of climb up the mountain. And obviously in the ATLA era, there almost is vines all over it, because, you know, it was pretty much destroyed like 100 years ago, and the Herbalist Institute is the only really like used location left overall. So yeah, aristocratic bungalows lacing across the slope. So that nice kind of description here, and of course it sort of fits with, I suppose, when we meet the Zongdu of Taku in the next chapter, I think it is. You'll see that this is very much the idea that they're going for here, of like the wealthy city, of course. So they're arriving here in a kind of group, among a group of airbenders here. You know, then they note that like the airbenders were relaxed, cracking jokes, and Kavik is a little bit like, do they know that Yangchen has been exiled from the Northern Air Temple, or are they acting like nothing had changed? Either way, Kavik is just kind of like, I don't think we've addressed this properly, and we'll see. She also hasn't told everyone else either. So this is sort of a kind of more personal thing that Yangchen is keeping to herself. And of course, Kavik knows as well. So interesting stuff overall. And again, they're arriving there, and it's Kavik looking at Yangchen, who's of course kind of, you know, flying the bison. And he's just kind of wondering, like, she has dealt with a lot in just the last like couple of hours effectively. When we land and she turns around to face me, like, who is it going to be? Will it be Yangchen? Might it be one of the other avatars? And maybe that avatar won't be as strong as she is, and like, who knows what they could encounter here. So, Kavik is kind of worried about her, but his job right now is to just kind of sit, watch, and wait, because in a way Yangchen doesn't kind of want him to intervene in these type of things. But anyway, so we arrive at the international district in Taku, and pretty quickly we just get the idea that Yangchen is bringing her team in dressed as air nomads. That's the kind of main point that's being made here, of like, Kavik feels like they've committed a crime here, dressed up as air nomads, as they arrive, like, where basically Yangchen and her kind of team is going to be staying here. They of course get a huge welcome here, and it's a big kind of celebration, but Kavik also notes that, like, this is almost less Yangchen's arrival and more like her farewell journey, of like, in a way, it's more significant the place she's leaving rather than her arrival in this specific place, just because she has been exiled from where she has just left. So then we get down to the kind of like, some of the discussions here. Initially, it's just like everyone kind of just figuring out what they're going to do while they wait for the meetings to start. It is noted that they used an excessive amount of perfume during the kind of like welcome kind of parade, and Kavik is kind of struggling here. He has like a headache from it, and even Yangchen kind of mentions on like the following page that, like, I am going to take a bath to wash off all of this perfume. Don't bother me for the next couple of hours. That's kind of the way it is. And yeah, it's noted here. Yeah, the town doesn't spend silver when it can spend gold, of course. And yeah, it's mentioned, yeah, they're all dressed up as air nomads here. Then we get an interesting point here. A giant sound kind of reverberates across the city, basically the Great Gong of Taku. So we get one giant, bang, a second one, and they're almost waiting for the third, but it doesn't happen. And that's an important thing in a way to almost like remember here, is that it is the normal thing of the gong to kind of go off every hour on the hour with 2 hits, not 3. It'll come up later on. Just remember that. So, as Yangchen goes off to take her bath, Kavik's like, well, she's taking it well. And Taegum is like, wait, taking what well? And so this is the reveal that, oh, she hasn't told them about her exile from the air temple. And so he just kind of hides it by saying, like, oh, she hasn't, she's taking it well working with someone who turned on her, referring to himself. And so, Taegum and Akudan go to make some food. They make a joke about how we're making ocean kumquat and Komodo sausage. And Kavik's like, Fire Nation food, referring to the Komodo sausage, of course. And Akudan is like, we like him, Jujinta, better than you. So we're making kind of food more related to where he's from, rather than specifically appealing to just kind of you. And that's obviously because Akudan and Taegum are of course from the Water Tribe, but they've lived on a Fire Island for like quite a while, so they like the kind of mixed food. Jujinta, of course, I guess the Yuyan Island, whatever it is a Fire Island as well. Whereas Kavik would be the only one who would sort of like prefer it to be all Water Tribe food. But anyway, this is when he finally is left alone with Jujinta. So this is kind of what the entire chapter is kind of about at its core, is these two finally getting a chance to have a discussion here. So Kavik is just like, oh, okay, so how do I approach this? Look at you, new boss and everything. How's it working out for you? And so he's trying to immediately get back to normal. Jujinta, of course, very serious, and like everything he says is like the same tone the whole way through. It has been the most glorious experience of my life. Every moment in the Avatar's service is a guided step along the true path. By following in her wake, I have been blessed with certainty in all I do. And Kavik's just like, well, as long as you're happy. But Jujinta doesn't just let it go. Like, we actually see him be a lot more vocal here, and he's like, yes, as long as Jujinta is happy, then no harm done. He doesn't know any better. That's what you're thinking, right? Let me tell you something. My happiness wasn't worth the chaos you let into the world, and neither was your brother's life. And And he's like, you know, you can start feeling better about yourself once your existence is a net gain. And Kavik is just trying to brush this aside and be like, you know, I suppose a lecture is much better than threats. But Jujinta's like, no, I just haven't gotten to the threats yet. Because he reveals here, I know you left the room last night, basically. I know that you went to meet with something and like tell them something. I told the Avatar about it, but she told me directly to drop this issue, and that's the only reason I didn't go out and kill your contact. So the only reason Do is still alive is because Yangchen told Jujinta not to basically ignore the fact that Kavik is going out to you know, give secret reports effectively. And Kavik's like, there's the Jujinta I know. And so, yeah, he's like, you know, I don't know who your new masters are or why the Avatar accepts the situation, but if you betray her again, I'll kill you. If you hurt her or anyone else on the team, I'll kill you. If your death will further the Avatar's goal, I'll kill you. And he goes really serious with this. You know, it can be slow or fast. Not every wound needs to be fatal right away. And Kavik's just like, you know, I don't think the Avatar would approve, Juji. She's like, she wouldn't know. One less problem for her to worry about. And Kavik in his head is kind of thinking about like, oh, like a disposal in a way of someone. Very similar like what happened to Q on like the first job that they did together. And so Kavik takes this as like a pretty heavy low blow. And so he responds in kind by saying this to Jujinta. Well, keep walking this path of truth. Maybe one day you'll be able to look your brother in the eye. And even Kavik is surprised at how mean this statement is. And Jujinta just kind of walks off saying, I can't believe I touched a bow for you. So a little bit of a reference to Jujinta's past, but ultimately it is something that goes relatively unexplored over the course of the book. We'll get to an important chapter later on in the book where we kind of learn a little bit more about Jujinta, but it's very much not directly, and it's kind of weird that that decision was made, that they made a point in the last book of pointing at this whole like Yuyan connection, but then they never particularly come back around to it, so it's still left as being a pretty bad mystery. But anyway, at this point they're like, oh, you know, one of you two get in here, help, the floor is greasy and someone younger needs to do this. And Jujinta's like, I would be happy to scrub away the filth so it is never seen again on the face of this earth, as he's like looking directly at Kavik. So Jujinta making a little bit of a joke there, of course, but yeah, we just end the chapter with Kavik sort of noting that like, that's the situation that I'm in here, you know. The team still doesn't like really trust me. It is fine for sort of his mission in general, that it will allow him to kind of report to the White Lotus kind of more easily because they're kind of isolating him a little bit, but he kind of wasn't fully prepared for how lonely in a way it was going to be, like just being the outcast within the group, who they only ever see as the Oathbreaker, as the betrayer effectively. But that is where the chapter ends. I like that they gave like almost a complete focus chapter to the Jujinta Kavik dynamic, because Jujinta kind of needs more characterization. But yeah, it's the introduction to Taku. We don't learn a massive amount just yet, but you know, we do you know, at least get the basics here, connecting it to material that we know about from before. But yeah, I think a relatively, you know, straightforward chapter here. It's just the crew is here in Taku. We know what we're eventually doing. We know that in the next couple of days, the plan is that on the final day, when all the world leaders, all the Zongdus are there, that is when Chaisi is going to plan to strike. So they have the next couple of days to basically try and figure out where is Thapa, and to stop this whole thing before basically the world leaders are killed. So, you know, that is the situation that we're in. We're just settling down at this point. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.